Dude, how are you? I'm doing great, man. Gosh, it's so good to see you, coach. How's
Man, it's been a
how's
minute.
dude, way too long, man. I went back to the Berg golf outing this past April. It had been 7 years since I've been back there. So
Dang, getting
yeah.
old.
I know, right? How's you're over at Thomas More now, right?
Back where it all started.
Back where it all started, baby. How you doing over there? The whole family over there?
Yeah, we are. Shoot, man, we are living with my mother-in-law right now as we sold our house in Wilmington and looking to buy a house down in this area. So yeah, my wife and all the kids are shacking up with the in-laws right now.
Dude, that's the way to do it. I just moved back home with my parents too. So there you go.
Yeah, yeah. You're not 46. You're not 46 though.
No. Hey, whatever it takes, right?
Yeah,
Whatever it takes, man. And
amen.
you know that business. Which speaking of which, so everyone, welcome back, Recliner Sports Reporters Keep Change podcast. I have the special privilege to have with me one of the people that I looked up to, especially when I was in college growing up and then transitioning into my coaching career. We have Bryan Moore. Um, you're the assistant coach and offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach, right, over at Thomas More University, right? That's Thomas More University, baby. Put the U underneath it, not a college. All right,
No,
let's go. Division two, I recently now, right? You guys just
yeah,
moved up. Division
yeah.
two football program. Um, Thanks so much for stopping by. Like I said, um, for me, Coach Moore was a guy, and I know we'll get into it as we get talking here, but when you talk about hard work and consistently showing up, doing the little things, that stuff that I still to this day take into everything that I do, it came from this man right here. So talk to us, Coach Moore. The transition now, because you played you were a college athlete, right?
Yeah.
And you went to school. Where was it again? Where'd you go to college at?
Man, I tell you
Hiram,
what, man.
Hiram College,
I
right?
did, but even before there, my college career got started off as a basketball player at Mount Union.
That's a random fact I never knew about you.
Yep.
Now,
Got the,
playing noon hoops with you, I know you're a dog on the basketball court. But Mount Union, Purple Raider. You have Purple Raider in your blood. I love it.
for for a little bit, man. Barely made it a full year there, and then it didn't take me long to figure out that 5'8" point guards with no jump shot didn't really have a real high ceiling. Um, in the basketball world. So, and I was changing my major into special ed at that time too. And in Hiram College, I had a pretty good program for that. Wanted to get back into football, and they recruited me pretty hard out of high school, and I was pretty close to home too. So worked out.
Got to do it. So
Yeah.
that really one of the main things I really want to talk about today. And I think the where I know just what you had just said right there, kind of understanding like, hey, I have skills here, but I also have another passion to go to play another sport. But at the end of the day, really the overarching thing there is you chose to play in college, right? And I think there's always a big kind of taboo against I got to go D1. Right, I got to go D1. I have to play. I have to go D1. I have to, and there's a lot of misinformation and kind of sometimes it's frowned upon to go to a D2 school or a D3 school. As if you were, talking to a high school player, like how do you what's your kind of message to kids as you're recruiting them, and then like the importance of not just getting an education but still playing in college at any level? What's that kind of message that you kind of preach to your recruits and your current players, right? Because when you have
Yeah.
players, I know they start, oh, I'm not getting any playing time and I'm at a
Yeah.
D3 school. So what's that kind of message that kind of that you give to young athletes, and then inspiring athletes that are about to go into college? What's that kind of message you give to them?
Yeah, like I was a little different when I was coming through it. My dad was really realistic with me. Probably my sophomore year of high school, I started getting some tick in basketball and a basketball. So obviously at that age, you're like, man, I'm going to Ohio State. I'm going to be a Buckeye, or I'm going to be a Penguin and go to Youngstown State and play for Texas. Um, my dad was pretty realistic about sitting me down and like, hey, like, man, I don't want to kill your dreams, but like, let's be realistic about this. So putting that in my head a little bit. And then my high school coaches were real realistic with me too. And I think that the better part of that is I was willing to listen. I was willing to be coachable and say, okay, like these guys know what they're talking about. They've seen D1 guys. They've seen those aliens.
Yeah,
You know,
they are
and
freaks.
I'm not like the 1% when you see it. You don't
Yep.
have to look for it. You don't have to be around a game of football. Like anybody can see the 1% and identify that kid at 14 years old is an alien. Um, so that was the start of it. And then for me, and like I said, I was different. Like I was never really a football guy until I started playing football in college. I'd play anything.
Right.
And
Literally, ping
yeah,
pong, dodgeball. You get it, Coach Moore.
like, if I ever wrote a book, it would be I title the thing "Chasing the Next Game," and that's all I was doing. Like, man, okay, man, I got football practices. When is open gym basketball? I'm going to play open gym basketball. Okay, who wants to pick up the sticks and let's play some ping pong afterwards or whatever. But it was always just chasing a game. Where's the next game? Where's my opportunity to compete? Where can I go? Um, and then when I got to college and ran, it was really just football now. And then it became fun. And then it was like, okay, like how much can I learn about playing wide receiver? How much can I learn about offenses? How much can I learn about defenses so I can be better at offense? And that, but again, like I was a little bit different. Like I always knew I was going to coach. Once the Ohio State and the Youngstown State dream collapsed, that NFL or D1 or bust mentality was never there. So then it was, well, I can find another way to get where I want to go on a coaching end. Um, and so then it just kind of evolved there. Now, when we have this thing, whether it's D3 coach or an NAIA coach or D2 coach, what you're talking about is pretty much an epidemic now, really, with man, social media as good of a tool as it can be for recruiting. Man, like you can get fooled by that social media. Like you jump on social media at any given time, and it makes it seem like everybody's playing Power Five.
Yep. Yep.
Everybody's an All American, and everybody's getting a full ride. And the numbers just don't support that anywhere close to that. Like we're looking at man, just to play any level of college football is 12%
Right.
to get the opportunity. So you're looking at like this year alone, there's about 1 million high school football players from like ninth grade to senior year. Like every individual high school player right now is literally 1 in 1 million.
Right. 100%. Yeah.
And then you're looking at like maybe like 350,000 high school seniors this year that are recruitable, and you can cancel a ton of them out for academics.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
that narrows that pool down. So just the opportunity for like to play a game again.
Yeah.
I think what it really does, it really, man, we talk about the difference between, liking something, loving something, then the next level, loving something, being passionate about something. To me, that word passion is probably the strongest the strongest word in the English language. Um, I don't think it gets anything better than being passionate about something. Jesus Christ was passionate about something.
Right.
And people with passion, Martin Luther King was passionate about something. Like that level of stuff, like they don't care where it's at. They just want to be a part of it.
Yep.
And so I think that's what you get a lot of is guys really, really in high school when they're 18, they really, really like the game. Some of them love the game. Very, very few are passionate about the game. Um, and then some of them are really, really passionate about it, but don't have the ability
Right.
to.
Yeah.
And then if it's a
So
deep,
yeah, so that's no, that's the Coach Moore. That's great. And I'm glad that you brought up the passion because I remember my high school football coach told me, and told all of the seniors that year, it's like one, you have to wherever you're going, right? You have to imagine yourself being there for 4 years. When you went on campus, when you took the first question you'd ask yourself, can I be here for 4 years? Because that's the reality of it. And then the next thing is are you going to be passionate about this? Because a lot of what one eye-opening thing for me was, one, you have to wake your own self up, right? That's a difference. The people don't. I know that sounds really like, wait, what? No, you have to set your own alarms, get yourself up, and not only that, but you got to go to 6 a.m. weights. You got to go to class. You got to get your treatment. You got to go to practice. You're going to watch film. Might have a night class. Do your homework, and then you're back in bed because you got to wake it up. And people don't understand that this isn't just like high school where you just show up for practice after school and you go to high school, you goof around with your friends. Every second of your day um, is scheduled out and very rigorous. And if you're not passionate about that, that's where you see it. So the one thing that I learned in college and coaching with college was that players leave for multiple different reasons. It's you can't narrow it down to one. Yeah, there is some playing time. There's okay, I didn't like the coach from when I got recruited, but there's a lot of stuff, like you said, there's grades, there's the ability to not be able to manage a schedule themselves. There's the, oh my God, this is a lot more work than I wanted to do. Where am I going to find a job? Because you're working the whole time. So if you even attempt to get a job, which a lot of people do, you're now adding that into your life, which again, there's 24 hours in a day, but when football at college is a part of it, you get really burnt out. And if you're not passionate about that, you can see why kids fall off. So what now you can't, that's one thing I love about, you can't teach that, right? You can tell them what it takes, but when you have a kid that's kind of like on that bubble, because I know we dealt with this a lot, right? And you deal with it a lot, like a kid that comes into your office, right? And you just know, and it's like, this is the talk. They're going to tell us. And again, at that level, and you see it at D1, but a lot for D3, D2, because you bring on so many kids and that kid sits down and has that conversation with you. What is that kind of like, that like you can do it, like motivational, like what's that message that you're giving them to kind of help now? Because a lot of the time it's just eye-opening for them, right? It's not that they really want to quit. It's just, this is really tough and they need someone to talk to. What's that message to those kids that are on that bubble of now that their eyes are open, but you know they have potential? What's that kind of message you give to them?
Yeah, I think really the biggest, it isn't really a message initially. It's more of listening initially of like what is like what is really going, what's going on outside, especially for freshmen. Man, if it's an upperclassman that's coming in there, like you ain't changing their mind.
Right.
Like if it's made it to the point they're sitting in a head coach's office or coordinator's office, that's a wrap. It's over. But for a freshman, man, like a lot of like you said, man, like here's a kid who's away from home. Here's a kid that, man, probably struggling, can't figure class out. Like football isn't going the way he wants. He's just overwhelmed. But in high school, you had, man, so much support. You were so so deeply connected. You could go home. There was mom and dad. There was girlfriends. You had your friend network. It was easy to find somebody to talk to nonstop. Usually, for a freshman, it's, man, I'm not connected to anybody. I got all the stuff built up. I don't know what to do with it now. And I've been harboring it, harboring it, harboring it, harboring it. And now it's to the point I don't know how to release it. Here I am. I think I'm done. And again, some guys just need to hear, hey, like, man, there is a path. Like, you're not the only one. Like this happens probably to every college athlete
You're
early
like,
on.
you're the fifth guy that's walked in here today.
Like that self doubt, that self doubt kicks in at some point. A lot of like it's. I think the biggest advice that I give them when they come in is, man, like, can you give me one more day? Like, is it so miserable like that you can't get up tomorrow and go to class, hit the weight room, come out to practice? It's still 2 hours of the game that you're supposed to love, that you grew up in a backyard, and let it go for 2 hours. Just enjoy the game. Just enjoy being out there, being a college athlete, and a goal you achieve, and just enjoy it for one day. And if they make it through that one day and you follow up with them after practice, it's like, man, can you give me tomorrow too?
Yeah.
And then you try to see if you can string it into a week. And then, hey, you made it through a week. Hey, can you give me another week? And can that week turn into a month? And typically, if they make it through that first fall and get to breathe in the off season, and you can get them back from Christmas break, then you've
Yeah.
got a good shot. But that initial burst
Yeah.
of so much new and so little support of people they trust initially is hard to overcome.
Yeah, and it's not talked about enough, right? And I think a lot of I know there's a big swing now into mental health, but I do think it's you have to recognize, and I'm glad you said listening, right? Because that's a new thing. And I know when I was growing up, it wasn't as much listening. I didn't get as much of listening as much as like, yo, just suck it up, get through it. Right. And
Right.
I know for me, moving as I've grown up and I've seen mentors like yourself. And I know like one instance, I remember, I think it was like my second practice as a GA, and I had a really bad moment with a kid, right? Really, really bad. Just, it was total yelling. Again, just me of just, you're not doing what I'm asking you to do. Do you even want to be here? And I remember you coming up to me after practice and being like, hey, like, totally validated, like what you said. He wasn't giving effort. Totally get it. But what you need to do is you need to go check in on that kid, because you have to remember this kid's from Florida. This is a hot practice. It's 2 days. Remember what you were like when you were there. This kid needs someone, because no matter what, we only got 4 tight ends this year, so we really need some tight ends right now. So, so go and check on him. And but that's like, I think that's a really nuanced thing. So my next thing here is, I think when you get to that point, I think there's a lot of preventative work to get to build that culture, build that team. So when you get those freshmen in, and you have your teams that set, and you have those guys, but you got that freshman in, what is kind of your message that like you work on with the coaches? What's that kind of those preventative measures on how you're building that team during the training camp? What are those, what's that culture that you're trying to create, and what's that kind of like picture look like when you're creating a culture that's one, welcoming, supportive, but also motivational? How do you go through and take me through those steps on how you build that culture?
Yeah, I think like for the freshmen coming in, I think the key is the touch pieces. Um, who can who can connect with this guy? And I think it's probably a lot of stuff you experienced at Heidelberg, that it wasn't just you and Benda all the time. I mean, Coach Howard had a big part of that, and certainly I was if you remember camp, man, like you're tossed around with different people and different groups, and you're doing different stuff in big groups and smaller groups, and we don't know the kids that well when we get them. We know them through the recruiting process, but we don't know
Right.
them. They don't know us. And what we're trying to do is, man, like I might not know that kid, but that kid's going to open up to Mac a lot more. He's going to open up to me, and you're counting on your upperclassmen to kind of be that filter of information back to you too. Of hey, did you know this about him? But if you can get them talking, you can get them around multiple people, multiple touch points, and that's a critical part of getting them in with like student support services, director of multicultural affairs,
Yeah.
that type of stuff. You don't know who's going to impact that person. Like you always assume it's going to be a football coach or it's going to be a teammate. Um, but man, the more people you get them to touch with all the other stuff they got going on that we're unaware of, there's somebody there on that campus that can connect with them and give them an outlet to open up to, just to feel a little bit like they belong there. And I think that's the goal of every camp
Yeah.
is not just to take all the wide receivers, stick them with Coach Moore. Hey, you've got them for 14 days. Let's go. Like, man, they got to get like they got to be around all the coaches for sure. But man, they've got to get to the different spots on campus, and that's why you bring in so many guest speakers and you bring in your alumni and talk and all that kind of stuff. You're just trying to find somebody that they can say, hey, I'm from that guy's hometown, or I know where that guy is, or boy, he's got a similar story to me. And I think the more people you get around your guys early their freshman year, the better chance you have of retaining them.
Yeah, and I think it really, like you said, a lot of it really does come down to the upperclassmen, right? Because I really do think, especially with sports, relationships and building relationships, one, it helps your team, right? Because you're playing with guys that you know are there for you. But two, it really helps, like you said, sometimes you move to an area, and majority of the time, you don't know anyone that's with it. Everyone's meeting everyone for the first time. So really relying on building those relationships, making those connections, and not just in your position, right? Mixing
Right.
up and getting them meeting everyone. That really does, I think, go a long way. And I think that's one thing I know. Yeah. At Heidelberg, that was drilled into our head. And I know it was a great tool that we always used. And I think that helped carry a lot of people through the tough times of like, oh, I think this is it for me, and being able to know I can go and talk to that person. What now you said you always knew you wanted to be a coach. What kind of how what was that point? Like how what why did you want to get into coaching? What was the your biggest driving factor? What made you become passionate about transitioning from a player like you mentioned, oh, I knew right away I want to be what was that thing that kind of made you feel like this is what you wanted to do?
Man, dumb luck. Like I got around some, like honestly, like just so is life. Like like man, you get around the right people. Like man, I had some really really great coaches growing up. And like and maybe like how they treated me, what they did for me, like just the selfless acts of their time and their commitment. And a lot of it's like my youth coaches. Like, man, those guys are for free. They were, bagging groceries during the day and coming out and like coming up with crazy baseball drills or like throwing BBs and I got to hit it with a broomstick. But like that type of stuff, I think. And then when I got into high school, my high school football coach was very, very innovative. And I think that's kind of where I really got the bug between him and my high school basketball coach, especially, was like, okay, like they relate to me on a different level than anybody else. I think they saw the competitive side of me. Like, man, they were able to push me and challenge me and
Yeah.
not baby me. Like, man, and it was fun because I knew it. Like I knew that they're just digging at me, trying to get something out of me, and but I could talk like man, the conversations were on a different level than my teachers could ever talk to me. That like different than when your parents are going to talk to you. And I think I was just like, man, like I want to do what they do, and it was more just a hey, I want to be a high school teacher, a high school coach. I want to get back, to my high school in the Youngstown area, and man, then it just kind of moved on into college. I was around a lot of the same type of people. And man, like they pushed like nothing. They wouldn't let anything slide. I think, and that's probably the type of coach that I became too. Man, like it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. I was an arrogant, I was a cocky kid in college, and because I had that relationship with coaches that I felt was different. Like, man, I'd say some things you probably shouldn't say.
Right.
Um, and my body language at times wasn't probably what they were looking for. They expected more out of me, where everybody else could do it, but if I did it, like man, like it was okay. We gotta we gotta change this. And like man, like I learned so much from that style of being challenged, and that's all I wanted.
Yeah,
And
no, that I think that was I'm glad you said it. That was very much my kind of experience with coaching too, is you go off of kind of sometimes you try to imitate like what you've seen before, but also you have to then kind of step back and again like understanding like, oh, I need to evolve because there's little things, right? My tone of voice, my body
yep,
language, how I'm looking at a kid, like it does kind of that's all that stuff really matters for and coach and yeah, there is a little bit of luck. I do think though the biggest thing is the showing up and grinding every day. Coaching is a very hard career to stay in because it's such a grind. For first year coaches, right? So those players that are now leaving high school or leaving college, or even like the first year GAs, what would be some advice you would give to those type of people, to let them know like, hey, stick like what's the message and what's the advice you would give to like a first year coach or someone who wants to get into coaching?
yeah, man. Like I tell you what, like young coaches, when we're hiring GAs and interns, and even like a first year entry level job, man, like we really don't really care how much ball you know. Like we're not expecting you to know ball. Like that's kind of our job is to teach you the scheme and the system and all that kind of stuff. So you look at like, man, we got all these resumes. None of these kids know how to coach ball. So how do we find the right one? And you hit the nail on the head, man. It is like, man, is he gonna show up? Like, is he gonna? and not just show up physically, but is he going to show attitude to work? Um, I think the second thing, like, man, you show up every day, like, and be early. Like, be early. Fight your way to beat the first coach in the office. Find a way, like, even if you're half asleep and you don't know what you're doing, man, find a way to stay in there. Find a way to stay late. And I think that's a key quality that's hard to figure out in the interview process, but you find out real quick
Yep.
how much they want to be there. Are they looking for a reason to leave? Um, I that's a critical one. I think you got to continue to be coachable. Um, you it's going back to going back to being a freshman in college. Like, man, you just there's such a knowledge base you don't have,
Yep.
and if you're itching to learn it, it's there for you. But you have to be proactive in your learning.
Yeah.
Everybody gets a playbook. Everybody starts with the same thing. Well, it's the same as when you're a young coach. Like, you're going to get a playbook, but for you to understand all that, do you use your resources? Are you proactive, or do you just sit in your office? Hey, I'm here early.
When is the day over? When I
The first step is to be there. Like, the
yeah.
second step is to be proactive. And
Yep.
that's a hard thing to figure out too. Is like, man, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, but man, like, there are coaches there that'll give you plenty of work to do,
Yeah.
and that's part of the work. Is, hey, coach, man, you gave me this. Like, I don't know the work yet. Like, what do you need done?
Yeah.
And
Right.
the best young coaches I've ever worked for, man, before they left that building, it's always, hey, Coach Moore, I'm on my way out. Do you need anything else done? Can I do anything for you? And at first, you're going to hear no, because I don't trust you enough to do the work that I'd rather do it. But you keep asking and you keep showing up, and eventually you'll get a small little project. And the next key component to those steps is, man, if you make it the big time where you're at, and this small project might be, hey, whatever, just take the inside zone cut ups, make me a cut up of 10 inside zone clips, five to the right, five to the left. And then if you make me a good cut up and you make it the big time, like, you label that thing, you brand that thing, you make it a presentable thing, I can show to the players, man, like, I'm going to give you the next project.
Right. Yeah. No, it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's so funny how I it's so translatable too outside of coaching, right? I feel like the majority of what I'm doing in my career are just things that I took from that year of just being those 2 years of being a GA, right?
Yeah.
Is understanding that there is work that's going to have to be done outside of your scheduled hours, but also understand if you do that hard work because again, like for me, summer camp, it was camp for us, summer camp's only 10 weeks, right? But there is so much work that needs to be done outside of those 10 weeks, which is the really hard work because then when you get to the first day of camp, it's all easy there, right? The
Right.
kids are there, they're having fun, but it all came down to the staying up early, the writing the schedules, setting the curriculum, hiring the staff, getting the registration, like all that stuff. I took from like, I remember it was all right, I got to be at weights to coach, open up the gym, get the bands out. I'm going to be breaking down film. I'm going to be doing my match class. We're going to be giving recruits tours. I can catch a 20-minute nap underneath my desk. And then we got practice. And then we're going to our class. And then, hey, I got to come back and watch the next team's film because I have 700 plays I need to break down and label. And a lot of that, it seemed so hard back then, but it made everything the rest of my life so much easier because it was like you said, just being there, being proactive, not just sitting there and being just a lump on just I'm here, right? But asking what's those extra things that all translates. So whether you're staying in coaching or not, I know like what you were saying, that all translate over into my next career, and then whatever your next career after that is. No, that's again, I think that's really hard for a lot of young people to hear. I think accountability. I know one thing. I don't know if you like listen to David Goggins or read David Goggins, but or Jocko Willnick too. It's
Yeah.
extreme ownership, right? Like you were saying, it's like, well, I'm not getting any projects. I'm not getting the coaches aren't asked. Well, what are you doing? Are
Correct.
you asking? Right?
Yep.
I'm not seeing the results I want. Well, what are you doing? And I think that that's a hard skill to learn. But if you can step back and take that accountability and take that ownership, you start to realize that a lot of the problems are you, you, you not doing the work. Um,
And you have the answers right in front of you too.
right, you have the guys, you have the experience. I think I was really blessed having guys like Coach Donaldson, Coach Jake, yourself, specifically yourself. And I think Coach Hallett, the hardworking mindset he had, Coach, those all those guys. I think the one thing I took away from that was be supportive, be motivative, appreciate the people that you have, but also figure out ways to continually develop them. Not just saying, okay, I have this player, they get through. It's like, no, like get to know them, get and show them the right examples, but also inspire them and continually develop them to whatever they want to do, whether it's coaching or not. So we got a little. I don't want to run too much time. I want to give you some time to kind of talk about Thomas Moore. I want to give you some time here to kind of give your recruiting pitch for those athletes that are looking for spaces, because I know you had signing day. How did signing day go?
Oh, it was very, very good. It was my first one as a scholarship coach. It was pretty unique experience. Pretty unique experience. Like, man, you know what it's like coaching like D3. Like man, like there is no signing day. You're
No,
just always recruiting.
you're every day signing
Yeah,
day, baby.
and we're not completely finished now, but to know the bulk, like 80% of your roster, your recruiting roster, is set on a certain date. Man, that's a different feeling of, whew, I don't have to make 60 calls this week or 60 contacts this week and set up all these visits. You can breathe a little bit. Yeah, Thomas Moore was man, what a unique ride for these guys. Like 5 years ago, they were still Division III football.
Yep.
And then he made a transition the last four into an NAIA level of football, and now we're transitioning. We're a provisionary member of NCAA Division II. So football right now is completely under NCAA Division II guidelines, where like our winter sports right now are still playing NAIA schedules and stuff like that. So it's a weird deal. So Thomas Morse made two big jumps in 5 years. So that's been a heck of a ride since I got here of watching how that transpired. But
Yeah, that's really
then,
cool. That's awesome to kind of
yeah,
see that trend. And I'm sure that's been like a fun, just understanding the transition and the different level. And now the level of competition, it's a big step. And you're going to, I'm
oh,
sure you're competing against athletes. And again, a lot of people for Dr. There are so many NFL level style talent play. I mean, you got Dante right behind you there. I mean, he was a D3. Like, people don't understand that just because it's Division III or two, you're going against some
yeah,
dudes in there.
yeah,
So,
man. Let me rant here.
yeah, go ahead.
Because when you talk about that, and Dante's up here, and Mike Preston certainly on the other side of the wall there, but those two, like when you go all the way back to D1 or bust, man, chase the game. Chase a game, chase your next rep, chase your opportunity to play over everything. That guy had Division I ability. Mike Preston, Division I ability, right? Mike Preston didn't get an opportunity because he was 6 foot, 135 pounds before he hit his growth spurt in college. Dante blew out his knee his senior year of high school, didn't get a look. Okay, so they chased the game. They chased an opportunity to play. They found a place where they could play. They extended their career. They extended their resume. And then they kept working, and they had special talents and all that kind of stuff, and they got to play on Sundays. Doesn't happen for everybody. But how many guys like those two didn't chase their next game?
Right.
They
Yep.
chased, hey, D1 or bust. I didn't get it, so I'm done. Man, you had every ability. The world's littered with those guys.
Yep.
Okay, or hey, and everybody's different. But hey, like man, I'm a walk on here, and I'll probably never play. And they had all that ability. And man, like you get these guys had an opportunity to play 40 more football games. And they took the opportunity to play and chase the next game, play in 40. Again, that's not for everybody, and everybody has different opportunities. I'm not saying one's right or what's wrong, but I think, man, it's a terminal sport.
Yep.
It comes to an end, a finite end.
Literally.
Basketball, where we can noon hoop all we want, and you can play beer league softball forever, and shoot tennis turns into pickleball and all that kind of stuff. this is terminal. And after high school, there's an opportunity to play 40 out there somewhere.
Yeah.
And to maximize that 40, I think is one of the greatest opportunities you have to keep playing games. I think it's a very, very, very cool thing is to, to play that game, to get on the field, to put the pads on, and to keep playing it because it comes to a finite end.
Yeah, and again, it's like we were kind of talking about before. It's like just understanding like you got to be passionate about it and make the best of your situations. And if you keep showing up and working hard, you may have those opportunities to extend it even more, right? Because like you said, it does come to an end. But if you get lucky and you put in the work, you have the potential. No matter where you're at, you can get noticed if you're doing the work. Um,
Play. You got to
yeah,
be on.
yeah, you got to chase. No, I love that. I love. You should definitely get on that book, brother. Chasing the next game. Chat GPT, they'll write your book for you. So talk to me about what's the difference between what makes Thomas More stand out to the rest of the Division II conference? What would make a kid? What kind of separates you? What's your kind of your golden egg of why a kid should choose you guys?
Yeah, number one right now we're the only Division II college in the Cincinnati metropolitan area.
That's big.
So we're home to a city. We're in the state of Kentucky, in northern Kentucky. We're about 10 miles from Paul Brown Stadium, Great American Ballpark, go Red Legs. But we are in a city, so we have that big town feel to us. We're number one on return on investment in the state of Kentucky. An unbelievable business program with the Fortune 500 companies downtown, our nursing programs, and some of those more unique majors is probably our biggest weapon to close the gap on the D2 conference we're joining is our backyard. The great football that's played in southwestern Ohio and northern Kentucky, being right here in the city, man.
That's awesome. And if kids were interested, like, how can they reach out to you?
Man, at BC Moore 22 on my Twitter. That's the cheapest and easiest way to recruit right now, man. Doesn't cost them.
It really is though, and like people don't understand that. And like honestly, sometimes putting yourself out there, because again, I know recruiting is tough. We're seeing hundreds of kids, but I know like guys like Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, those guys use social media to get them a spot to where they're at. So definitely reach out. And if it's the right fit, it's going to be the right fit, right? That's awesome. So with a little bit of time left, I got to know Super Bowl this weekend. What's the predictions for this weekend, man?
Yeah, it's simply a prediction. We have NCAA guidelines with all that other kind of stuff,
Yeah,
but
yeah. No, no lines here. No. How do you think the game's going to play out?
I'll say who I'm rooting for.
Okay.
Obviously, I'm a D3 guy, an OAC homer, and with Coach Sirianni sitting there as the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't know if they'll win or not, but god dang, like I think that's a really cool story to be a D3 OAC guy all the way to the top and win a Super Bowl.
It would make the OAC look really good. No, speaking of that, former OAC guys, I was. It's a funny story. I was looking up, when Brock Purdy came on the scene, right? And I'm like, man, where did he go to college? And I looked at Iowa State, and I was like, oh my god, that's Campbell. And I was like, where is he at? Mount Union. Like that guy, like they just breed winners. So that's again, great conference, great coaches, and again, it just shows again like when you got a guy like Sirianni in there, he's going to lead that. I'm with you though. I like the Eagles. I like Jalen Hurts. I like what they're doing. I think they've had a great run. I think they've been a consistent team. I think that's the biggest thing is they've consistently been playing great ball. You Mahomes and Reed though they're great, but I agree with you. I'm pulling for the Eagles too as well. Well, awesome. Any other kind of final things you want to plug out before we wrap up here?
Nah, I don't need to plug nothing, Mac. I just want to plug you, man. I mean, it was a lot of fun catching up, man. Like I miss being able to, like, man, I wish I could do that with more guys and stuff like that. Just find an hour of time to catch up and just talk shop and see how everybody's doing. But it's great to see you doing well, man. I had a blast when you were around. I had a blast playing some ball with you, some noon hoops. So keep doing what you're doing, man. You're a lot of fun to follow.
I appreciate you, Coach Moore. Thank you so much again, everyone. This is Coach Moore over at Thomas More University. Thanks again, and we'll have to do it again sometime. All right, everybody.
You know how to find me.
Keep the change, brother. Have a good one.
Yep.